I'm Lindsay.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Joe from PopXcast,
a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual host.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready because geekiness begins in
3,
2,
1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
This guy gets more airtime than the Kardashians, right?
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper, the Starling Tribune. You might notice I'm not the chief editor, SP. No, he's out on assignment to Leanne Yu. There's something fishy going on out in the island right now. But I'm Chris, I'm filling in, and we do have our reporters for this episode 215 of the Starling Tribune. Michelle.
Never bring a T-sphere to a gunfight.
And our returning special guest, Neil.
What would Green Arrow do?
This podcast is recorded live on Thursday, October 25th on Geeks.live, the streaming home of the Gonna Geek Network.
Today we'll be discussing Arrow as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the last week and that could impact future episodes of Arrow, as well as The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and the rest of the DC universe.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. After the show, you can check out our content at GonnaGeek.com. We can also find other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles.
All right, thanks, guys. Michelle, why don't you go ahead and break down the current episode of Arrow for us?
Sure thing. This episode is The Longbow Hunters. It's Season 7, Episode 2. It aired Monday, October 22nd, 2018. It's directed by Laura Belsley. Credits include 6 episodes of Arrow, 1 Preacher, 1 Flash, and 1 Blind Spot. Written by Jill Blankenship. Writing credits include 1 Arrow and 7 of The Last Ship. And Rebecca Bellato. Credits include 6 episodes of Arrow.
We got a pretty good crew this week, it sounds like. I'm good with it. Plus, I saw Last Ship on there. That got me excited because I just started picking up that show this summer, and for some reason, I'm kind of hooked. I don't know why.
Nice.
I get hooked on things. I don't know. But let's talk about things that SP is hooked on. And that is the weekly ratings for all of these shows here in the CW Arrow universe. So let's work our way across the map right now. On Sunday, October 21st, we had Supergirl Season 4, Episode 2, pulled in a live rating of 1.34. Then on Monday, we had the back-to-back duo of Arrow and Legends. Arrow pulling in the 1.18, and Legends of Tomorrow are pulling in the 1.0. Not great for a premiere. Moving on to Tuesday, we have another back-to-back combination. Flash Season 5, Episode 3 with a 1.87, and Season 2, Episode 3 of Black Lightning with a 1.18. Now, these don't have DVR numbers factored in or any app numbers, but guys, what do we think about these numbers? They good, they bad, or are they just somewhere in the middle?
I'm not a sports ball person, but I keep hearing about a World Series that might be going on and a thing called football.
That is true. Sunday had a World Series game, I believe, and Sunday Night Football. Same with Monday, I believe.
We're going to be fighting Monday Night Football, I guess, all season. I'm disappointed with the Legends live number. It was a fantastic episode, and heck, more Constantine.
I was really afraid Legends was going to be the one that would suffer the most on this, but I'm actually kind of surprised to see that Supergirl is getting beat up a bit more than I expected too. 1.34 is still good for a Sunday night, but
I think considering the age of the audience, I do think there's a lot of app views, and because a lot of live stuff, eventually there's going to be things like The Voice and Dancing with the Stars that are live that a lot of people just watch, and I think what happens, a good 1 million is added from DVR when we talk about these things in the summertime.
That's a good point.
So there's at least a 1 million bump there, and then plus app views, and they have that deal with Netflix. CW isn't going to renew something if it's losing money.
Right. I don't think we're in dire straits. It's just Maybe I was expecting a little bit more. Maybe I'm just out of touch with what current ratings are without DVR numbers factored in, because I never really think about DVR numbers. I just watch on my DVR. I'm part of the problem. I don't watch anything live.
Nope.
I'm the worst.
Yeah, we're with you.
That makes me smile. I'm not alone. But I think that covers our ratings talk. Things are looking all right. Don't worry, folks. What we are going to talk about now, we're going to break down the plot, the theme of the episode. Let's dive deep into the Longbow Hunters. So, Michelle, kick us off with the overall theme of things.
Well, I do usually do this, but we have Neil, and Neil is our comic book encyclopedia, and he has dived deep into the treasure trove of the comic book history of Green Arrow. So, Neil, please take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. So, Longbow Hunters, when I saw the title of this episode, I was thrilled. And when I was asked to come back as a guest reporter, I couldn't pick a better episode to talk about. The name The Longbow Hunters has a deep history in Green Arrow lore. Back in 1987, it was one of the comic books that actually got me to Green Arrow, who'd been one of my favorites back in the 70s. The Longbow Hunters was a 3-issue and later a graphic novel written and drawn by Mike Grell, who is an iconic Green Arrow artist and creator. But that's not the only time that the Longbow Hunters has shown up in Green Arrow lore. In DC's New 52 run, the Longbow Hunters, a team of assassins that bears a lot of similarity to what we're looking at today, was brought back in Green Arrow volume number 5, issue number 31 by Jeff Lemire. And they were a team that were brought up by the Clock King, who we've seen in different format in the Arrowverse. And it actually consisted of Richard Dragon, who we see as Ricardo Diaz, Brick, who's now in the Arrowverse in prison, Count Vertigo, Killer Moth, and Red Dart. So there is some similarity. At least we got Red Dart in there. But the creators of Arrow have gone a bit further. They've introduced Kodiak, who was also a character created by Jeff Lemire in the volume leading up to the Longbow Hunters in a fantastic run of Green Arrow called The Outsiders War, where Kodiak was the representative of the Shield clan. And as we saw in this episode, he carried a bladed shield with a spike. So they're picking and choosing from the Lemire run. And so far, I'm pretty psyched. Now, it's worth noting that this new Longbow Hunters team also includes Silencer, which is pretty cool. Silencer is one of the newest characters actually in the DC comic books. It's from what they call the New Age of Heroes that actually started early this year at the end of Dark Knight's Metal, when an entirely new universe was basically created. Silencer is a retired assassin who does create this zone of silence. Of an anti-hero trying to do right and protect her family. So it's different to see a brand in a new way in the Arrowverse, and I'm pretty excited to see where it goes.
So as someone who's more of the comic authority than me, I think I might have read Longbow Hunters. I can't remember. There's so much stuff in my back catalog I might not have gotten to it. This is okay, the adaptations they've done. As a comic aficionado, they get the Neil thumbs up / stamp of approval on how they're handling Longbow Hunters so far.
They get the so far so good stamp of approval. So yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, we'll go with that stamp of approval. That's probably better than mine.
That is a good, and I really like how they were introduced. I mean, it's just like when it opens up, there's just this woman walking into a building, and then all of a sudden she just like shoots this dart into a computer and does the whole, it's very interesting. Oh, can I borrow a pen? And she bumps into a guy. Oh, I'm so sorry. And it ends up there, stealing what we find out is a renewable battery from Global Solutions. And then all of a sudden, like you said, Kodiak comes down with the shield and then get this silence and such. I really liked this introduction. It was just really cool to see them already in action, doing something that's going to pay off later in the story, without them going, like, oh, I'm so and so. They're just going in and doing things. And then we learned they're the Longbow Hunters. I thought that was a really cool way to introduce them.
So this intro reminded me a lot of the kind of intros you'd see on like Chuck and some of those other kind of spy TV shows on TV and movies and things like that. Because it felt like a heist/spy kind of thing. And I was like, I can dig it. This is fun. It felt like, or Alias. Maybe that's the best parallel to make.
Yeah.
It was fun.
No.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by these folks. Give me more.
Yeah, they didn't get bogged down by backstories to each one of these villains. They just threw them in, and we're relatively intelligent comic and TV savvy crew that watches Arrow. Speaking for all of us, I guess. So we didn't need lots of exposition.
Yeah, I think they've realized on some of these folks, I don't need to know their entire backstory. Just show me that they're a badass, for lack of a better term. And that's what they did with the Longbow Hunters. In like 5 minutes, they established, beyond what we've told you, that the Longbow Hunters are dangerous. Here you see it, and you're like, oh yeah, I can see why the Longbow Hunters might be trouble.
Yeah, we see why Richard Diaz, our dragon, has hired them.
I wonder what the going rate is for Longbow Hunters.
Yeah, I don't know. Somehow Dragon got all that money, but that was last season. We're just going to forget that. We're going to hand wave it. He's rich.
Because plot.
Plot.
Sorry, Neil.
Oh, I missed that.
It lives on. We have kept it alive, Neil. What's really interesting is Felicity is very obsessed with finding Diaz and therefore the Longbow Hunters. And it's really interesting how she's back and she's really trying to take charge of Curtis's workstation in Argus. Neil, how did you feel about like Felicity just kind of, let me hack everything, Curtis?
Yeah, let me put your job on the line and try to work around Diggle. And I get it. She's passionate. She has recently been attacked, but she's not helping Argus. She's going off on her own. And as we saw with raiding the location, it didn't work out. She was actually more of a hindrance and probably triggered the self-destruct as we see. And yeah, she just, not only did she disregard or disrespect her friends and what they were trying to do, but she, running off half-cocked didn't serve anybody's purposes.
It's dangerous to run off half-cocked like that. And it almost, for lack of a better term in pun, blew up in their face at one point in the show. I mean, Diggle's got a whole military-like organization behind him supporting him in the hunt for Diaz. And 3 people are going to do it better that aren't the Green Arrow?
Yeah, not just any 3 people. It's Curtis, Felicity, and Renee.
But
not
as
exactly.
he points out, not Wild Dog. Do you see a mask?
And Curtis, it's interesting. Curtis was being the voice of reason.
Curtis doesn't want to lose his job.
He said it several times throughout this. I like my job. I like this new gig. And heck, the head of R&D for Argus, yeah, that's a pretty decent gig. It's got Black Ops government money funding his projects.
I mean, considering he's basically been unemployed since Palmer Tech went under, because yes, I know he and Felicity formed their own startup company, Helix, I forget the name, Helix Technology, something like that. I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist if he's working for Argus now. Considering
R.I.P. Helix.
Yeah, considering their one and only prototype is in Diggle's arm, I'm pretty sure they don't exist anymore.
Don't they have a second one in Felicity's spine as well?
Well, that was Palm. I don't remember if that was considered
Palmer
Helix Tech or not. I think it's Palmer Tech, and they've just stole it to put it in Helix
There.
Tech, basically. Oh boy, SEC is going to come after them, aren't they, or someone like that?
Exactly. We like the fights and everything. It's not really a fight. Let's go to the prison. And, Neil, you said, like, what would Green Arrow do? Oliver has been tasked by Brick to get rid of the guard York. And I love how Oliver is just like, oh, I would need Overwatch and gather information.
Yeah.
And
oh, go ahead.
And in the hallway, what did we think, Neil, what did you think of his plan with the the bottle top,
Yeah.
balloon.
So this
Pencil.
is normally the fight segment of the cast. But you're right. I think Ollie is doing everything he can not to get in a fight after he decided he still needs to be the Green Arrow in prison. So he's finding creative solutions around it. I'm okay with his little slingshot trebuchet pencil fragment light trick. Sure, go for it. It advanced the story forward. It didn't belabor it. I'm down with it. Hacking the prison computer based on the tricks that Felicity told him. Listen, it was probably an air gap computer or something. Like I don't care if it's locked down, it's locked down. But because plot, as you said. So I'm good with it.
I enjoyed the little miniature bow and arrow made out of a balloon and water bottle. It felt like something you would see. Remember years ago they talked about doing a Green Arrow movie with him set in prison called Supermax? It felt like the kind of thing you'd have there as a little gadget that Oliver Queen would use as a distraction or some type. That was perfectly in character with what I expected from there. So I thought it was delightful. And it felt very MacGyverish, actually. But that works for prison kind of breakout, prison, being stuck in prison kind of thing. I'm good with it all.
Yeah, sticking with the prison segment, Chris, what did you think of all the steps that Oliver was trying to do to avoid killing York?
So it's in line with who we're used to Oliver Queen being again. Remember, I talked about in the last episode, Stephen Amell talked about in episode 1, there's going to be a moment where you kind of hate Oliver Queen, where he acts completely out of character, which is when he lets his now buddy get beat up and doesn't intervene. So this is what we're used to seeing with the more modern Oliver, is that he doesn't want to have to kill unless he has to, especially not kill an innocent person. So he's grasping at straws to find some way to not have to kill this prison guard. And I have to say, I like the method he comes up with, and we're probably going to touch on it later, but it was smart and tricky, but also fit the bill of making sure he's out of the prison and no one gets killed. So his conscience is clean.
It's interesting that he knew exactly where to aim.
Well, he's just that good.
He is the Green Arrow. Aiming at things is what he does.
I mean, the only one better is probably Deadshot. Ooh, that'd be fun if Deadshot was still alive. But we're pretty sure Deadshot's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
because of the Academy Award-winning Suicide Squad movie.
That's right. SP likes to remember that they won an Academy Award. So SP, this one's for you. Academy Award-winning Suicide Squad. Great flick. Everyone should go watch it and then thank SP for hearing about it on Twitter.
Neil, what do you think of Stanley? We were trying to figure out if he's just a Green Arrow super fan or if he's shady. How do you feel about Stanley?
So there is a Stanley in Green Arrow comic book lore. He has nothing to do with prison. And if you're interested, you can check out the first couple of issues with preceding the Kevin Smith run. But that is probably just a weird coincidence. So read it if you want, but then ignore it. Actually, it's a fantastic story. So read it and enjoy it, I guess. But do I trust him? Oh, heck no. Saying every man in prison thinks that they're innocent, and that's what they're going to tell you.
So do you think he has his own motivations, or does he work for Diaz?
No, his own motivations. He's just a shady guy.
See, I kind of start to think that he's there as a plant for Diaz. Be like, hey, get in good with him so that when the time's right, yoink, and twist a knife of some kind. Maybe I'm just overly paranoid, but the way Diaz has plans within plans, it seems like.
That's why you're better set up to be a supervillain than I am, Chris.
Better set up. I am a supervillain, Neil.
Heard it here first.
Don't tell anyone.
Neil, are you happy the prison storyline is lasting more than 2 episodes?
Yes. But it's moving along quickly. So that's the thing. I think last season and the season before, we would get bogged down in long monologues, lots of exposition. They could have dragged on this, oh, how do we get him out of prison? How do we get rid of the guard for 2 episodes? Or they could have had Ollie monologue for half the episode. They didn't. They moved along quickly. As I said, I didn't care to see how he built the bow. I just, he's got it. He shoots the light. It goes out. We didn't have a long, complicated, how does he hack the computer? He goes in. My wife taught me a few things. Boom. He's in. He's out. It's moving along at a good pace.
It is.
I'm happy.
It is, but they've also committed to the whole prison's going to take a little bit of time here, because we saw this week they changed the introduction. Normally it's I spent 7 years in hell, blah, or 5 years in hell, blah, blah, blah. Now he's talking about going to jail for being the Green Arrow. He's now inmate 4537. He's not the Green Arrow, stuff like that. Now, granted, they did play with that last season by having John Diggle do the intro for 2 episodes, so it's not unheard of, but they're committing to it. And from the way Stephen Amell's been talking, Oliver's still in prison until around the crossover time frame, it seems to indicate. I mean, he shaved his beard then, so one would think he's out of prison if he shaves the beard, because maybe it's a misnomer. I don't know. But they're certainly committing to the thought that Oliver Queen's not getting out of prison in 2 episodes. It's not going to be like Flashpoint that lasted 1 episode, where we had all of these great conspiracy theories. Oh my God, here's what they could do. And then by the time the crossover happens, he can make everything come back together and it'll be fantastic. Where we got 3/4 of an episode in the Flashpoint world and then it was undone. And we were like, wait, what? What just happened? So I applaud them for kind of sticking by this thought of being like, no, we're committing to this prison bit. And even in all the interviews, they're keeping along that lines, because Stephen Amell's made a point of saying it's been kind of fun working with a bunch of actors I haven't worked with before. He goes, I don't get to see most of my regular co-stars very often, so it's really a treat when one of them show up. So either they're spinning some good yarns for us on the con circuit, or they're committed, and it looks like they're committed, and I'm excited by that. And that was a long, rambling diatribe. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I want to move on to an unexpected team up, and that is the Canaries. We learned that Laurel is ditching her police protection, and Dinah comes in. And then we learn that Black Siren is, of course, hunting for Diaz, and they end up at this property Diaz bought. And Neil, what did you think of those two? They go in and they're just, it was really cool. Like, I really like how Silencer comes on, and it actually, the silence, I can't believe like they actually did that in the show. A lot of times they just want to fill it audio and music and stuff, but you actually, don't hear. And then that great fight, because Black Siren actually had to fight, didn't she, Neil?
So I totally. But honestly, I'm jumping on board the Laurel train here. When I saw her going into the fight, I saw her not in Black Siren garb, but I would call it Black Canary garb. I was like, yeah, it's good to have Laurel back being a canary. I was down with that. So yeah, I liked it. I liked the two of them going in. I liked Dinah being there with her, and really interesting fight with Silencer and the two canaries. And the Zone of Silence was the equalizer. So yeah, fantastic. And you know what? Kudos to the writers and the director for pulling it off. You're right. They could have thrown in music. They could have made it spooky. But yeah, that was probably a call by the director to just cut the audio. And damn, it worked.
Yeah, the very subdued sound was fantastic on that. And you could argue that this is also a play by Diaz to show how he's got plans within plans, because he knows Laurel's going to be looking for him. Who's the best one of the Longbow hunters to send to neutralize her? Gee, the one that neutralizes sound, in which her powers are based around. So it came off perfectly. Like Neil said, dumbing down the audio, or not dumbing down, but making the audio greatly subdued, it works really well for this fight. And it was a fun fight, and it was brutal. I enjoyed it, and I like the fact that Dinah is completely unaware until she rounds a corner. Is like, oh, what the hell?
And I like the fact that Laurel took some damage in the fight, and then as the DA, she still had the mark on her face. They didn't ignore the fact that happened. They carried it through the rest of the episode.
And I like the fact that Dinah is not just like, oh, all is forgiven. That she kind of understands Laurel a little bit better, but she's not really on the Laurel train yet. Remember, she's like, I don't care if he what was the line? I don't care if he kills you, but I don't want him to kill the district attorney or something to that effect. So Dinah and Laurel, not BFFs, and I doubt they're going to turn into them either.
But Black Siren did apologize to Dinah for killing Vince, which to me was a really like ding, 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 ding. Here starts the redemption arc.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of called that at the end of last season that we thought was going to happen. And as long as they are smart about how they do it, you can't just have her apologize one week and then the next week everyone's like, hey, Black Siren's fine by me. There's got to be a process as Black Siren, for lack of a better term, redeems her character and her title at some point throughout the season. And I'm guessing at some point we're going to see her in Black Canary garb.
The question I have is whether or not Ollie and Laurel, they won't know we've got Felicity. It's, I think for the redemption arc, the next thing that happens is Laurel needs to save Dinah at some point, make a conscious effort to do it. In this fight round, Dinah came around the corner and effectively saved Laurel. But the next thing that needs to happen, and yeah, I agree that we are on the redemption arc here, Michelle. Mark my words, that's the next step on this train.
And speaking of trains, we had this great action sequence because while Silencer was in the warehouse property, on the train was Diaz and the other two Longbow hunters. Neil, why don't you talk about the train?
It was interesting to see Diggle command a section or a squad of troops with Felicity as Overwatch. I really enjoyed see him going in like that. The question is, how effective are regular troops going to be against superheroes? We saw that Kodiak was not only carrying the shield, but resistant to damage. We know that Red Dart nearly killed everybody with poison gas. So I think they're going to realize that it takes metahumans or people with abilities, vigilantes, whatever they want to call them, to take them down. It's funny. It's too bad that Argus didn't have a squad of uniquely powered supervillains that they could throw up against these people.
What an idea. I bet that would have won some awards internally for putting together a great squad of supervillains.
Maybe put bombs in their brains just in case things go sideways. I don't know. Just an idea.
And maybe have a psychologist that's gone off the rails as part of the team.
Exactly. I thought there was an interesting moment between Felicity and Diggle. One of the things we complained about last year was the Oliver and Diggle fight when Diggle wanted to be the Green Arrow, then not, and then they fought and such. And there was this moment between Felicity and Diggle where Felicity's like, Oliver wanted you to be the Green Arrow, and here you are in Argus. And then Diggle's like, I saw what the Hood did to your family, and I couldn't do it to mine. What did you think of that character progression, Neil? Like, did you feel it was deserved or rushed?
You know what? It may have felt rushed, but again, similar to how I felt with earlier in this, I'm fine with it. I think the name of the game is pacing, and he just came out and said it, and it was probably on a lot of people's minds. Hey, you were really peeved that you weren't the Green Arrow last season, and now here you are not being the Green Arrow. What up? But he came right out and said it, and I think it put it to bed. And I like how the writers and the showrunners are doing that. They're taking things we're all thinking about up. Hey, how are we going to deal with William? Oh, let's send him off to boarding school. How are we going to deal with Diggle not being the Hood or the Green Arrow? Okay, he thought about it. He didn't want to destroy the family. Moving on. I like it. I like this pacing.
I think it makes sense. And you got to remember, from our standpoint, we're just a few episodes removed from when Diggle and Oliver were head-to-head on this. But from an in-show standpoint, it's been months since that happened. Oliver Queen's been in jail for, I can't remember how many, 50 days, something like that?
5
months. So there's been a lot of time that's moved for the characters. So from a character standpoint, it makes sense that Diggle's had time to reflect back and reflect and go, maybe this isn't the right path for me. And he's kind of found a place in Argus. Now, that's got to be weird considering you're the director's husband, but that's neither here nor there. I'm okay with this transition as well because timeline-wise it makes sense, even though from our viewer perspective we're like, well, this might be a little quick, but like Neil said, the writers explained it well here.
I think that also fits with Diggle's personality. Like, again, we go back to what did he do the last time he broke from Teen Arrow? He went back to the military. He's always liked a fixed command and control structure. You know, Ollie is a non-conventional leader. His training methodology was non-conventional, and he fought him with that. Diggle feels at home with a military or a paramilitary structure, and I think he fits in. And not his wife, but the other director who was in this episode. But he gets it. So, makes sense for Diggle.
He does like structure and order.
He sure does. Talk about structure. We have a new element in the story structure this season. We have the flash forward, and we get William and Roy on Lian Yu. Now, Chris, William says Oliver and Felicity just left him. Are you buying that?
I think if you look at it from the perspective of William when he's 12, how old is William? I don't even remember now. He's in his early teens probably, is from what I can tell in our current time frame. If you look at it from his perspective of his dad's in jail, Felicity ships him off to boarding school so she can try and help get Diaz, it does feel like you've been abandoned. Now, I would think that once Oliver gets out of jail, he'd want to bring his son back. He's been all about, I want to see my wife and son, things like that. So I think it might be exaggerated a bit. They did leave him, but I imagine he'd be coming back. This would be kind of a heck of a spoiler if Oliver and Felicity never get William back and they announced it in a flashback.
Well, you think about it, they gave him the magic Lian Yu, and if that he saw his folks when they gave it to him, yeah, that would be when he was shipped off to boarding school. But I don't think they'll leave it like that. Honestly, there's something that's going to happen.
I hope they don't.
And in a universe exists, and where Barry exists, and multi-dimensional crossovers exist, I'm sure there are ways to fix this.
And it's interesting that it has coordinates in it, and it started beeping 3 weeks ago, and that's why William is on the island, and we find Oliver's stash 20 years in the future. Perfect. That is some box, isn't it, Neil?
Sorry, I just thought about Canada legalizing cannabis when you said they found Ollie's stash. I was like, I don't think, that's the stash that you meant. So, yeah, no, it was great. Again, because plot. You know what? Just leave it with that. I was happy they found all the gear. It's weird that Roy didn't find it on the island. He's like, well, I guess Roy had found it, which is why he took William there. But you know what? Cool. Let's just move the story forward. If you're a comic book fan, William has never meshed with canon. Connor Hawke is Ollie's son in the comic books, and seeing an older son for Ollie, I think sits better with me than the adolescent son. So yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, they find a note. Roy happens to know where to look because he's Roy. And now they're off to Star City. So things are going to happen. Kind of like that they're not just going to sit around a campfire for like 8 episodes.
Thank goodness, right? That'd get boring real fast. He's not going to slap water for a season to learn how to
sit around a campfire with Ollie's stash.
Well, they do film this in Canada, so...
Yeah, who knows? Now, this person didn't show up in this episode, but in the season premiere, we have what I'm calling the fake Green Arrow. And Neil, do you have any ideas that perhaps who this fake Green Arrow could be? I have some theories. I don't know if you agree with some of the ideas or if you got your own.
I'm thinking Roy right now. I'd love it if it was Nyssa, or it's a timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly William. I got I got three things going on in my head. That's it for me.
I'm in the same place as you. Those are the thoughts I had.
Michelle.
Yeah, with the Wave Rider. Like, come on. So, Neil, is there anything else about the episode you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm excited. I think the one thing I'm really happy about with the prison scenes, and just to go back to that, is that it continues the story of some of Ollie's better villains, of Brick, of Stardust, for lack of a better term. I think now that's not Bronze Tiger, is it? That's Komodo.
No, it's Bronze Tiger.
Tiger.
Is it Bronze?
Tiger?
Yeah, it's Michael
That's
Jai
Turner.
White.
Yeah. So then I'm still happy with it if it's Bronze Tiger. So I'm happy to see these guys again. And Vinnie Jones is fantastic. You know, I'll take more of him throughout. So,
Man, could you imagine if they made a Suicide Squad out of all those characters and Oliver? How fun that would be.
Yeah, I'm sure teamwork sessions would be real fun.
Well, I mean, you put a bomb in someone's neck, they'll team up. You either play nice or boom.
You know what?
and Diggle could be Rick Flag.
You know, here's the thing. If they rebooted the Suicide Squad, they obviously would have to do an escape room in order to build team working skills, right? I mean, that's what everyone does now.
I hate those things.
Oh, my goodness. Chris, is there anything else you would like to talk about?
Real quick, we kind of hinted at it, but Oliver Queen's plan to get out of having to kill the president, Oliver Queen's plan of getting out of killing York, I was delighted by the fact that he starts a confrontation and then shanks himself to set him up. I was like, bravo, sir. Bravo. And not a critically damaging wound either, but it's enough to bleed and make it look like the guard tried to kill him. It was well done.
The final thing I have to actually throw in as well, Michelle, is I'm thinking what's going to happen after the crossover. And if this season echoes some of the prior ones, and again, with a new showrunner, there's no reason it will. But if they shift, I mentioned they brought in Kodiak from the Outsiders War, from the Shield clan. If they shift into an Outsiders War in the second half of this season, similar to how with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. we had two discrete seasons, this could be a fantastic year for Arrow. Just, I think, one for the record books, if they can pull it off, if they're thinking of that.
I tend to think they've got a plan. I just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, we're 2 in. It's looking good. This episode ended with Felicity teaming up with the FBI, and we're going to see how that goes in episode 3, which is called Crossing Lines. It will air Monday, October 29th, 2018. Still in prison, Oliver faces his biggest challenge yet. Meanwhile, Felicity gets an intriguing offer, and Diggle asks Curtis to go undercover for Argus. Directed by Ben Hernandez-Prey and written by Amelia Ortega-Aldrich and Tanya Kong.
It's going to be good. This looks like it's going to be a fun one. But speaking of fun stuff, I think we're going to roll in and do some news next. Live from the Starling Tribune main news desk on floor 52 of Starling Tribune Tower, it's the weekly news roundup with chief news anchor Michelle Ely. Michelle, I'm throwing it over to you.
Thanks, Chris. And again, we have crossover news. That's what they've been rolling out all the time. And I have to admit, it's like, do I want to talk about it? Do I not? But this makes the crossover like 1,000 times better, because John Wesley Shipp is going to be the Flash in the Elseworld Arrowverse crossover. While the costume may look nearly identical to the one worn by Shipp during his first go-around as the Flash in 1990 and 1991, Mark Guggenheim credited the Flash costume designer Kate Main with pulling off this miracle, developing a costume that looked like the original, but presumably did not leave Shipp with a miserable feeling that apparently the original did. It is fantastic. There's this picture of Stephen Amell as the Flash, which is so weird. It's kind of weird. Grant Gustin in the Green Arrow garb, I'm buying, but Stephen Amell in the Flash suit, I'm not, because he's so bulky and anyway.
He does not have the build of a runner or a traditional runner.
But John Wesley Shipp looks amazing. For those of you, he came back. They actually brought him back to be Barry's dad. In the first couple of seasons of The Flash, which was amazing. We loved that. And then now he's, coming, being different Flashes from different Earths. It's amazing. Neil, what do you think?
I echo all those sentiments, Michelle. It is fantastic. Just thinking about it, I've got this silly grin on my face that just won't leave. I can't wait to see the crossovers. I absolutely can't wait.
Presumably, he is the Barry Allen of the 90s Flash, and I really hope, just for nostalgia effect, at one point they do like the speed effect from the 90s Flash for him when he shows up on screen versus what they've determined to be the speed effect for the Flashes we've seen in the modern incarnation of it. But who would have thought, if you told young Chris in 1990 when he's watching the Flash on TV and geeking out because it's the greatest thing he's ever seen, that 28 years later, 28 years later, you would see the Flash again on a different Flash TV show come back, and you'd be like, no, I don't believe you. You're full of crap. That's insane. I can't believe it's going to happen. It's one of those things. I was talking to one of the guys I follow on Twitter, and he goes, I'm really bummed that they shared this screenshot. He goes, it would have been a great surprise. And at first I was like, I'm kind of bummed too, because I would have loved to have had that moment watching the show and be like, holy crap, it's 90s Flash. But I understand why, because they're filming stuff outside. A set leak photo was inevitably going to happen. So why don't you get ahead of it, have the stars of the show tweet something out, get a whole bunch of fans excited, and have people talking about it. That was the perfect way to do it, because they couldn't keep it secret. And while part of me kind of hopes they do, I really enjoy the fact that right now I get to geek out so hard over it.
Another piece of news, we get to see the Monitor's outfit, glimpse of it, just very tiny. But I actually want to mention it because, Neil, we haven't been able to talk to you for a while about this, and it's called Elseworld and the Monitor. What do you think is going to be happening with this crossover?
You see, and that's the question, that the Monitor is associated with the Crisis and the Anti-Monitor. Calling it Elseworlds is interesting because it talks about the multiverse and Grant Morrison's view of the multiverse. I'm not sure you need the Monitor, but I mean, they've been teasing the Crisis since the first season of Flash, so we know it's out there, and maybe that's next year's crossover, and they're just introducing the Monitor this season. I'm less excited about the Monitor than I am about John Wesley Shipp back in his classic costume, to tell you the truth.
Ditto.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's 100% it.
I mean, at first I'm like, oh my God, Batwoman. But now I'm like, John Wesley Shipp. Oh my God. I can't help it. It's the geek in me.
Man, there's so much stuff packed in this crossover. Just what we know right now. I have no idea what else they're going to sneak in, but I'm really intrigued. But there's a lot of stuff riding on this crossover. I mean, they want to do a backdoor pilot for Batwoman. Rumor has it a backdoor pilot for Superman. Plus bringing in John Wesley Shipp and things like that. Man, they're going all out. And while I enjoy that fact, I'm kind of worried that we're going to get 2 more shows out of this and what that means for the future of some of our existing shows.
Yeah, there's only so much room.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught what was his name that used to play Lex Luthor on Smallville?
Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum. You probably covered this during the summer, but he did an interview on his podcast with Stephen Amell, and Stephen Amell's sounding pretty tired being away from his family for 7 years now. So an interesting listen if you've got the time.
Yes. Speaking of Michael Rosenbaum, he also talked about wanting to do an animated Smallville now and bring back the entire group to do it, which I'm totally on board with if you guys want to make that happen. Or, you know what I'm also on board with? Bring Michael Rosenbaum back as Lex Luthor in a potential Superman series. Totally on board with that.
Hey, Lex Luthor's coming to Supergirl.
That is true, and he hasn't been cast yet.
just put him right in. He has aged very well. He'll fit right on in. And as I said before, Tom Welling has aged well. I'm just mentioning that just to mention it and to bring our news section to a close. While our CW lineup might be getting packed and we don't know what to talk about, we actually know what to talk about when it comes to the GonnaGeek.com network, don't we, Chris?
That's right, Michelle. We like to remind folks, the GonnaGeek.com network, it's always growing. We've got 25 plus different shows on the network that cover a variety of topics. You've got things like us that talk about Arrow and sometimes Legends of Tomorrow. We talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We talk about video games, board games, geek culture. There is tons of stuff. And guys, as much as I would love to, I can't read a promo read for every episode of the shows on the Gonna Geek Network. But what I can do is give you a taste of one of our other shows and be like, hey, you guys might want to check this one out. And for this one, we're going to the other side of the world. We're going to Australia for our friends with the Game Life Balance Australia podcast. This is Stream of Nonsense 14, Sex Crazed Sheep Getting Whipped. Guys, that's a hell of a title. I had to choose this episode when I saw that. It's Stream of Nonsense time once more. Oh, how the time flies. So join your hosts, AC and Rob, as we discuss Professor Corona's Lemon Cartel, Super Mario Bros. Power-Ups, Japanese animal cruelty circuses, the entire history of Rob's experiences with the Mario franchise, handheld nostalgia, free Nintendo DS games, Astro Boy's butt gun, 8-bit Muttley, and the joy of being stuck in a hospital with a toddler for 48 hours, and the even greater joy of trying to learn Braille. There's a ton of stuff going on in Stream of Nonsense 14. It's a ton of fun. Rob and AC, they have me laughing all the time. So guys, go check out Game Life Balance Australia over on the Gonna Geek Network. GonnaGeek.com, click on the network button. You'll find it right there. And while you're over at GonnaGeek.com, I want to plug something else. As of Monday of this week, we have officially launched the Gonna Geek Discord channel. So if you want to come talk geeky with some of the members of the Gonna Geek Network, go to GonnaGeek.com/Discord. It'll take you directly there, and you can chat with us. There is a channel within the Gonna Geek channel for every single one of the podcasts on the network. So if you want to leave feedback to someone, you can always leave it on the channel. You can email them. You can tweet them. Just come talk geek with us. We're having a lot of fun there. We've been talking about video games, things like Red Dead Redemption 2, the Fallout 76 beta, news coming out of the crossovers for the CW superhero shows. There's a ton of stuff going on. So come join us. Be a part of the Discord channel over at GonnaGeek.com/Discord. All of that being said, though, I think it is time for us to start wrapping things up. A big thank you to the live listeners who participated in the chat room over at geeks.live, but also thank you to everyone who downloads the replays of the audio version over at starlingtribune.com or the video or the repeated video over at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
And if you have an Amazon device, you can enable our podcast as a skill. And remember, you can always catch us live as we record at www.geeks.live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays.
We would love to hear from you. We're the Starling Tribune on Facebook and Instagram, at Starling Tribune on Twitter, and you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. Well, this brings us to the end of another great episode. Any last words before we sign off? We're going to start with our guest at Neil Isn't Witty.
Well, first off, thank you guys for having me back on. It was an absolute treat. And of course, #BecausePlot.
Yes.
At the Chris Farrell.
#Holy crap, 90s Flash is back.
And I am at Michelle Ely, signing off with #Curtis needs his benefits. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at GonnaGeek.com or check out our archive at StarlingTribune.com. Visit GonnaGeek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at Incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.